Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today, my guest is an architect and a self taught photographer. He completed his Bachelor's of Architecture from PVP COA Pune in 2018. In the same year, he won Asia Young Designer Award in Singapore for his architecture thesis. He was also awarded a scholarship for a design course in Harvard Graduate School of Design, Massachusetts. He has interned with Bijoy Ramachandra of 100 Hands and is currently working with Bijoy Jain Studio Mumbai. His love for travel, architecture, and photography is linked with a common thread of minimalism. Along the way of his solo travels through the wild and cityscapes, he observes the dichotomy of man and nature, imbibing cultural nuances of the people he meets and taking inspiration for his art. He has cycled through various states of India, spending 1 month in each state, cycling up the Himalayas, through the barren desert land, along backwaters, and down highways. He has traversed all sorts of terrain on his two wheels. For those who are joining us today, who are tuned in for this podcast, thank you so much. It's very much appreciated. You can subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, or anywhere you listen this to. And without further ado, this is your host Vivek Idra, and I'm in conversation with Tanay Botara. Hi Tanay, how are you doing?
Hi Vivek, thank you for having me here.
It's my
I'm
pleasure.
good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. This is going to be a very good session. A lot of interesting stuff about you as well. So we would like to know everything. And let's get this started. So I would like to
Sure.
start off with, this is very interesting. You as a person, you have traveled a lot. The first question that I tend to ask when people say they travel a lot is, does it contribute in their growth story as an architect?
No, it does. It does help in the growth of an architect. But for me, it's not just you know being an architect and growth of an architect, but it's more of growing as a human being. Because whenever I travel, so I mostly live with local people, like homestay, and you know being with them around. Basically, that's the definition of travel for me, not staying into hotels or something. So whenever I've been into such experiences, it has always kind of grounded me down, because it kind of develops that gratitude towards what we have in our life. And because I'm telling this because what I was before cycling, before starting my journey, and what I am after being around all these people, visiting their places and cycling, is like two different persons completely. So it's so traveling for me is more of like developing oneself.
And
Yeah.
when you travel, do you have a itinerary planned ahead, or is it like very spontaneous and you just go about it?
It it is very spontaneous. We've cycled one state, so we know we have to go to this state. We kind of jot down just places where we would like to visit, but that's the only thing we know. So we go there, talking with people. This is where we have to go, and then like even mostly we don't use Google Maps while cycling. So it's talking with people and getting to know how they navigate through that place, to that landscape and terrain. So there's no bookings of hotels, there's no kind of dormitory bookings. Everything is like, so we have to cycle to the next place. We go there, we search for the place. Either it will be local people's house or anywhere. So it doesn't matter, it has to be a room as such. We have slept on petrol pumps, we have slept on footpaths, we have slept on, the courtyards of people's houses. So it's very free, and it's not too you know kind of pull yourself back that you have to reach here at this day, this time, and then you have to go. It's kind of free. If you're cycling and some person says that there's this thing which is really nice, which is kind of you should visit, we are free of that kind of bound that you don't have to follow a strict schedule. So it's more of a free kind of travel.
And
Yeah.
did you start traveling after your graduation, or was this something that you started doing much before?
Uh, yeah, long distance travel was before graduation, like after 12th. But I was always fond of cycling around, and so I've been cycling since my school days, like first standard or second standard to my school. And then, so in my 10th standard, I got this new cycle. And after board's exam, I was like, I have to go somewhere. And so I cycled to my village, which is like 66 kilometers from Pune. And I
Wow.
had no clue about, how cycling is, because I was in my teenage, and I was in those senses where, you put jeans and you take a bag on cycle and look all cool. So that was my first cycling experience. And it was summers that time after 10th board exam. And I left my place at around 2 o'clock or something after board exam immediately. And I started cycling in peak summers with jeans, sweatshirt, looking all cool. And but yeah, after in that journey, it's like a self-learning, because I got to know that looking cool is not what cycling is.
Right, right.
So you don't wear jeans and cycle. So after, and I never thought or pre-planned how will I do 66 kilometers. I've never, this was like the first time, but it was just like I have to go there. So in that journey, I was, after say around 40 to 50 kilometer, 40 kilometer, I was dead. I was like lying on some ground alongside the road, and I was like, someone just pick me up and take me ahead. So these are very small experiences, but these taught me something which, helped me ahead as a cyclist, as a traveler. So that was how I started my cycling.
Wow.
That was the first trip.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It's a
very
small
interesting.
thing, but it helps. Like self-learning is something I always look forward to. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just wonder, what's your, at a stretch, how many kilometers can you cycle?
No, depends. Like when we were cycling in Gujarat, roads were very good, highways were there. So in a day, we had pulled off around 160 kilometers or something, if I'm
Wow.
not wrong. But that's a very boring journey, I feel.
Okay.
It's like plain land and you just have to cycle, cycle, cycle. So it, yeah, 160 kilometers. But when we were back in Sikkim, in northern part of Himalayas, which is North Sikkim, cycling 15 kilometers in a day was a lot. So it depends in what terrain you are. And
Right.
but I prefer cycling up in mountains than cycling on a highway.
Right, right. And like, what do you carry with you? Because when you start cycling, how many days that does this go about? Like, you say a month, or does it go beyond that?
Yes, it's month. It's probably like 32 days, 34 days. That's a month approximately. And we
Okay,
are
one
minimalist.
question here. When you say we, who are this we?
Okay,
Who?
we as in what, my friend Prachitas and Shubham,
Okay,
even they accompany. So it's like three of us cycling around the states.
cool. Right.
Yeah, and yeah, it's mostly like just one bag where we have two, three clothes, one sweatshirt, socks, and that's all. It's like one small bag which is there, and
Yeah.
it's on our back. So
Right.
it's more of, yeah, minimalist travel as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And one of my friends from the social media handle actually wrote in this question. She wanted to ask you, were you ever scared? Because when you go alone, you don't you it's the situations are unpredictable. You don't know what could happen to you, and you're all sometimes you're alone as well. So were you ever scared of these travels for such long? And were you ever
For sure.
homesick? Were you ever homesick? And
Uh, First question, yes, of course, I was scared many times, and there are many experiences I could share of that.
okay, can you
But
give us one?
coming back to second, yeah, I'll explain them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
coming back to second question, for me, like the definition of home would be more of traveling around. So it's the other way for me. When I'm home, I feel sick. On road cycling, I don't feel like I'm not in my home. You,
Right.
you get me?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
sure if you're
Yeah,
getting
I
me, but
understand. Yeah,
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, being at home is always good, but for me, it's the other way around.
right.
And yeah, of course, many times I was, afraid of going. Uh, so one experience I would just short experiences. I was in Seattle, staying with my mama there, and they told me that I was hiking after the Harvard program. I went there. I was hiking around the stuff, and they told me that there's a rainforest nearby, which you can go and hike. So I've never done like a backpacking in a forest, and that was my first time. So I went there. I reached there, and so you have to get this how do you call it, like an entry pass. You have to register, and then you can go in for hiking. And it's open for local people, but there's one trail which is like few miles, so it's 1 day trail. People go in and come back. But if you have to go deep inside for a long trail, then you have to take a pass. So when I went there, they asked, what's your experience backpacking into the forest? And I was like, shit, I have to lie here. Otherwise I won't, they won't allow me going in. And I translated my cycling journeys, saying that those were all my backpacking journeys up into the mountains, and I have a lot of experience. So I got that pass and I went in. But I had no experience of backpacking, nothing. Before going, I met these guys who told me that you should take bear cans in because there were bears inside. Not wild animals, but bears who basically hunt for your food. They smell the food you're carrying. So either carry bear cans or the ropes which you can hang the food above. But I was less on my budget that time, so I just took Tupperware's boxes and put all my food inside it. And I was skeptical because Tupperware is easy to, they
Yeah.
can just break it off and take the food. But I was like, let's do something. So I went inside. The people used to carry, solar chargers and stuff because inside of course, there's nothing. So before going inside, I decided that just let's detach myself from everything. I didn't carry anything. There's no solar charger or even a book to read. So I wanted to be, in that zone where there is nothing but just nature around. So I started hiking, and first day it was amazing. All like, yes, I'm doing this. I'm super excited about going inside the forest. And let me describe you the rainforest. It's like Jungle Book coming live. It's splendid to be in there. Like, trees are huge. The diameters of the trunk, it's like your small creature in front of giant nature. It's amazing. So just I was going ahead. First day was over. I pitched my tent and I was inside my tent. It was pin drop silence, and like the sunset happened. The night gradually came up. And that time, that's then slowly this silence kind of, pulled me inside. It was traumatizing, that silence. So the silence I wanted to be in was traumatizing because basically we are not used to this lifestyle of being silent. We are used to telephone, social media, and kind of being with friends, going out, socializing with people. So that moment came where it was like, shit, I can't be in this silence. I should just go back and just forget about this hike into the forest and just go back. I couldn't sleep that night. All those thoughts started coming into, why did I do this? Why did I put myself into this situation? And all those stuff. And I was awake the entire night. And again, when all those thoughts started coming up, again, these thoughts came up, like, what if bear hunts for food? Because I don't have Tupperware cans. So the bear cans. So I put my Tupperware cans inside some rocks and piled up the rocks above it so that bear doesn't grab the food. I was all thinking, like, what if I open the tent and there is bear in front of me? All those,
Yeah.
some random thoughts start
Yeah. It's
coming in. So I
very
had
scary.
this,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's yeah, it's just like, because of moment it's scary. It's not scary, but because you are in that thought process, it's kind of pulling it on. So in that journey, I had this knife in my hand, which I used to keep and sleep the entire night, even in the days ahead. So yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that night was like the threshold for me of, from entering into something new. So in the morning, I slept around, say, I don't know, maybe like early morning. I slept for an hour or something. But when I woke up, I pulled up the chain of my tent, and there was a deer grazing.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
that frame, I still remember. It was so, how do I, this peaceful to see that
Yeah.
all the thoughts of being, why did I come here, were completely transformed. And I was like, I was into the nature that time. I was not a human being to describe. So so I describe that night as a threshold of transition from that life and being into that thing. But yeah, and so that was the thing, that it's the threshold for me, which was that night. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and in the nights coming ahead, I was scared, and I had this knife which was
Yeah.
always with me. Nothing happened, but just the thoughts in your mind, which kind of scares you more than the reality.
Yeah. And when you tell these stories to your family, your parents, what is their reaction? Do they still encourage you, keep, or do they, try to protect you and keep stopping you from doing this stuff?
Now, I never tell stories until I'm back home. Because
Very
it's
smart.
it's not about my parents stopping me, because they have been always supportive.
That's
But
nice.
it's because even they'll care back home, like what if it get into some situation or something. So why put them into some situation where they are tense
Yeah.
because of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tell. So that this one Sikkim story, which is also there on the website, the story of my death, I told them after 2 or 3 years.
Wow. Okay. Uh-huh.
But yeah,
Yeah.
never, like, never tell them the entire thing in detail while traveling.
Okay. When was your last trip? When was your last cycling trip?
Long back. It's been 2 years or something, I guess.
Yeah. Have you been missing it
Sikkim
because
was
of the
my
lockdown?
more than that. Sorry.
Have you been missing it because of the lockdown and all of this, pandemic situation?
Yes, I did a short cycling trip back in Alibag a week back, I guess, but not a long, a month trip. It's been like 2 3 years now.
Yeah. And these trips do tend to take a lot of your time. How do you, and also being an architect or practicing architecture, even studying architecture also takes up a lot of your time. And how do you manage between this and that? And like, I'm sure you must be equally passionate about both of these things. So how do you manage your time between traveling and learning or practicing architecture?
Yeah. Traveling is learning, I guess.
True, true. What I mean
Yeah,
was,
but,
yeah,
yeah, I get. I'm just kidding. So this basically what when we started this 1 month cycling was between the semester break.
okay.
So after the exams, next day we used to leave for cycling, and after college starts, we used to come back after 2 3 days.
Mhm.
So that's how this 1 month thing started. And it's better because in that semester you have been bombarded with all
Yeah,
architecture, and you need that breathe in between where you're detached from architecture, not emotionally, I'm saying,
yeah.
but you're detached it in a physical way. You're just thinking about architecture,
Mm.
and I feel it's like what being with people, seeing their lifestyle is, it's more of a learning of architecture than being in college.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's both ways, because even for photography, traveling, so it started with architecture, and where in the first year we learn about scales and geometry, pattern, discipline. In basic design we all do that. That's when I started developing this sense for photography. And then cycling around people, cycling around states helped me, you know kind of uh, sensitize me towards how you design for people. So it's all three dots connected. It's architecture taught me about photography, traveling taught me about architecture, traveling helped me photograph things.
Yeah.
So it's three. It's not this help this, but all are in sync. It's three dots together.
Yeah. You know, when you were talking about your Seattle experience when you went into the rainforest, it actually reminded me of two movies, in fact. One was Into the Wild. Have you seen that movie?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you can relate to that movie.
This, yeah,
Yeah. And another movie was Forrest Gump. And in the last part of
yes,
that movie, you know, he just keeps walking and running across the country to its length and breadth.
right,
So,
right.
these two movies came up to my mind. So, and there's no
Yes,
actually, I don't know, there's no like actual intent or purpose behind it. It's just like a calling, and you just go, and
yeah,
and you don't know when to stop. And in that movie where Forrest Gump, suddenly one day he stops. So
yeah,
yeah, it's hard to explain or understand. It's very abstract. It's a feeling. It's an emotion. So when you're telling about your experiences, it also I could relate to those movies suddenly. I just wanted to
yeah.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah, just so when you spoke about Into the Wild in this book also, there's one quote which has hit me really, you know, where he speaks about that threshold, what I was experiencing. I'll just read that part if
Yes.
you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says it's Into the Wild book. It says make a radical change in your lifestyle and begin to boldly do things which you may previously never have thought of doing, or being too hesitant to attempt that. So many people live within unhappy circumstances and yet will not take that initiative to change their situation because they're conditioned to that life of security, comfort, and conservation, all of which may appear to give one peace of mind, but in reality nothing is more damaging to the adventurous spirit within a man than a secure future. The very basic core of a man's living spirit is his passion for adventure. The joy of life comes from our encounters with our new experiences, and hence there is no greater joy to have an endlessly changing horizon, for each day to have a new and different sun. If you want to make more out of life, you must lose your inclination for monotonous security and adopt to a helter shelter style of life. That will first appear to be crazy, but once you have become accustomed to such a life, you will see its full meaning and its incredible beauty. So that's something which I've experienced. So it's very close to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very
It's
beautiful.
absolutely true, I guess.
Yeah.
And adventure, when he speaks, it's not about being in forest or being in the mountains, but you know kind of going beyond your comfort zone, I feel,
Right. Right. True.
for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, then I also wanted to ask, traveling has become such a big part in your life. How do you see this impacting you as an architect? Because the reason why I ask this is when you start, I'm sure you want initially, like in the years to come, at some point you would like to start your own practice. So, what kind of architecture are you interested in?
uh, I'm not sure if at this moment I'll be able to answer the question, because I don't have a practical experience as such. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll always love to do projects for people, for children especially,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, I just kind of get inclined to, you know, doing something for kids which would help them enhance their, which they're lagging in their childhood.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what I'll do ahead, but yeah, just help people and
Can you give us some architects that you really really are inspired of their work? I just want to like get into your mind and try to understand what kind of architects, what kind of work do you like really get inspired from?
uh, there
It
are
doesn't
many
have, yeah,
architects,
it
but
doesn't have to be
few,
one. Yeah, just some.
yeah, it's depends actually, situation to situation. It's
Yeah.
but I of course admire both of uh, my teachers whom I've worked with, Bijoy Ramchandran, because that when I was interning with him, that was my phase where I was changed as architecture student, my thinking process, also what architecture is. So of course, being with Sir, learning his projects, his philosophy of architecture, his work has always inspired me. Bijoy Sir, no doubt, Bijoy Jain Sir. So both of them, they are like, of course, my gurus. And but also Aris Matthews, if you know,
Right.
Barozi Viega.
Yeah.
So Anand Sonecha, uh,
Hmm.
C Lab,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, him. You know, I give credit to Anand sir many times because there was this phase a year back where, for a year I was struggling through many things. And so I went to meet him in Ahmedabad. And so one thing he had told me that time was, if you know where you have to go and if you know your capabilities, then never ever compromise. Things may fall in place after a long time, but don't ever compromise. And that had always stayed with me. And and now I'm kind of getting to make sense of what he has said. So yeah, Anand's work is of course very inspiring.
Right. Right. Yeah. And coming back to your traveling episodes and all these, um, I just have a small curiosity. Are you do you seek spirituality? Do you find a spiritual connection? Are you a spiritual person?
uh, for me, spirituality is not about gods.
Right. Yeah.
uh,
Of course.
to put forth what I want to say. But spirituality for me is more about when you kind of connect within you or connect to the nature you're into. So that's spirituality. And of course, when I'm cycling or backpacking around, I'm in that phase where I am not completely who I am, but I'm, kind of in coherence with the nature around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's spirituality for me.
Right. Yeah. Very beautifully said. Um, you know, through your travels, you've been also you're into photography. You're a self-taught photographer. When I saw your work, there was a large collection of black and white photography. If I may so, I would like to even say it's fine art photography. They're like very beautifully framed and very beautiful. And there's some amount of Photoshop work, or is it like just as it is? That's
Yes, it is. There is post editing, but the frames are as they are.
okay. So there's no you don't add in parts into the photo. It's just color corrections and these kinds of stuff.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, what, like my question is, why black and white? What triggered you to, go for that kind of a style?
Uh, yeah, so firstly, there are many black and white photos, but it's mostly monochrome. So
Correct.
there are two images you'll find which is orange and blue, which is
Yeah.
complete blue and which is complete orange.
Yeah.
But yeah, maximum it's black and white because uh, I'll tell you one short experience why I kind
Sure.
of got
Yeah.
into this. So we were cycling in the Sikkim trip when we were back into West Bengal. We were cycling in this city called Malda, if you have heard it, and we were cycling from Malda to Gore. And Malda, like we came down from mountain Sikkim, which was absolutely peaceful. And then being in Malda was horrible because there were continuous honking and everything. I know this, Prachitas and Shubham would relate to this a lot, but we were irritated about all the stuff. There were political rallies on the road, there were trucks honking, it felt so chaotic to us that we wanted to leave this place the next second. So we entered this territory of Gore, and there were beautiful mango groves around, and this lake which was there. The water was still. There were these small branches which came up, and there was a bird sitting on it. And the water was still, so you could actually see the mirror image of what was above. And that frame was like a meditation for me. It felt so peaceful, which I could relate to the frame of, opening the chain and seeing a deer grazing in front of me.
Yeah.
That, and it was plain white because the water was like the sky, the clouds reflection. So the water was white, and the stem and it, I don't know which bird was it, but it was black for sure. So, I don't know. We can share this image. I'll share it with
Sure,
you.
sure. Yeah.
So that image was the meditation for us, and that that got me thinking about how even a photograph could help you with your thoughts and with your baggage which you carry. And then I started looking into the photographs which I had clicked before, and then started to find that gap of meditation in them, and then gradually started working upon the old photos first and finding that gap, and then eventually I started clicking and all the stuff happened. So this black and white because of that experience first, which I kind of was in, and secondly, it kind of leaves you with openness. There's no specific how do I say, prejudice behind this, because if you capture a sand and if you turn it into black and white, it may look as a snow,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So this prejudice which you carry is gone completely. It's shattered.
Mhm.
So like these were the things which I started thinking afterwards. But yeah, so it more of like opens this window for people to put their thoughts into photograph and put their baggage into the photograph. So it's not about me clicking this beautiful frame and showing it to you that this is the frame and this is how beautiful it is, but it is more about your conversation with the photograph as well.
Right.
So it's, yeah, I'm not sure if I've reached to that level yet, but yeah, that's the journey for me to to be this photograph as the lens of what I have experienced and what people should experience, that silence what I have experienced, that you know meditation what I've experienced. And
Right.
also like this we being so tiny entity in like this huge world, because I have felt that into when I was cycling in Himalayas, the huge mountains, you know backpacking into rainforest. We are nothing.
True. True.
We are nothing in front of nature. So even like through photographs, I want to kind of put my experiences of how tiny we are in this expanse world.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, even photographs are basically
Yeah.
translation of my experiences, I would say.
Yeah. Quite intense, in fact. And there was this one photograph that I saw. You were in an airplane. You were looking out of your cabin window, and there was another small plane.
Yeah,
How did this
it's
happen? How did this happen?
it's two image overlapped.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's why I said, this is also kind of like fine art photography where you actually
yeah,
compose photography. That's why it's really interesting, your work. It's very minimal, but it's like it makes you think. It triggers some kind of thoughts, and you're immersed into that photograph. And for people who are tuning into this episode, I think everyone should go and visit his website, tanebotara.com. The collection is fabulous. Really, really good work. Have you ever been to South India? Like, have you traveled in South India?
yeah. Kerala,
Kerala.
we have cycled Kerala.
Yeah,
Kerala is beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I find South Kerala is more beautiful. It's
Uh-huh.
like when you go to Alapi and you start going below, it's just
Yeah,
splendid.
the reason why I asked this question is, there's this language barrier between North India and South India. Like it's it's really hard sometimes, getting along and communicating with people. So how did you, how sort those things out?
No, yeah, we went through this similar experiences. Initially, it felt really good to converse, use sign languages, and because English is mostly understood, but even in
Right.
few places, English doesn't work.
Yeah.
But later on, after like 15, 20 days, it was irritating for us. We were like, why can't these people understand?
Yeah.
It's senseless, but it just
Yeah.
like a fun experience to be in. But yeah, it's fun, conversing with sign languages. And you know we remember we were about to reach Fort Cochin and we were super hungry. So there was this thela wala who was selling bananas, and we went to him. We spoke in English, but he didn't know English. So, and they were selling in kgs, and we thought like you get by dozen, right? 12 bananas.
Okay.
So we were like, bara dena. We were like, and he didn't understand. Then we took out 12 bananas and showed him. He
Uh-huh.
still didn't understand because he was thinking in kgs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then he pulled out his kg, that stone which you get, and he showed.
Hmm.
Just did this.
Yeah.
Then we understand, oh, it's in kg.
Right. Yeah.
And these are small things, but these are like, what fills you up with memories and
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of engages you with people who are living around you.
Yeah.
So it's fun being in
Absolutely.
South India or North India, anywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm a South Indian guy. I'm from Hyderabad. So if you
Yeah,
ever plan a trip, I would love to, tag along.
sure.
But yeah, so yeah, maybe I could help in some way. I am not sure. But yeah, this time. More about this, but I also want to ask you right now about your in 2018, you won IDA, Asia's Young Designer Award. Uh, a fantastic victory, and because it's an international award and you represented India and we won. So and then the big reward that you get is that you get to Harvard. You get to go to Harvard University, and there's a design course. Can you tell us a little bit about this course?
About a course or about
Yeah,
IDA?
about the course at Harvard.
It's basically uh, a design course where there are three categories: architecture, urban designing, and landscaping. And I took architecture, and so it was a short course, but it was like starting from the basics of architecture till designing a project,
Right,
basically.
right,
So like 5 years of architecture crunched into a tiny pack.
right,
Yeah, but even after completing architecture and then going and doing that course, it was more of a relearning process for me,
mm-hmm.
because we have being taught it into a very specific way of learning, a
Right,
very specific way of designing or doing
right,
architecture.
right,
But being there, and colleagues who were with me were from all around the world, and the age gap, if I say, was 15 years to 57 years, if I'm not wrong.
oh, wow,
That was the hierarchy of people you're designing with.
right,
And there were people from some medicine background, math, music, civil, engineering. So, you know, getting to know different perspectives, not only with the lens of architect, but with a lens of different, people in our society. So it was more of a relearning process for me, which I completely adore, because it opened a wide lens for me. Of course, being in Harvard and living in to the dorms of these which were designed by legendary architects,
yeah,
being into being around their projects is extraordinary. it's not just admiring about what you see, but it's also about, how do I put it? It's more about how you feel in that space, and then trying to think what is right, or what is not what is right, what is wrong, but it's more of like gray, not black and white.
Right.
You're getting me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of putting yourself, your thought process into this, and not just admiring it because if it is someone's work,
Yeah.
but it is more of engaging with same like conversation with those structures, with the spaces.
Mhm.
And this library, no doubt, it's one of the, so being in them, going around the books. I don't read much though,
Mhm.
but just glancing around stuff is really valuable.
Yeah.
And yeah, like this, I always say this, but I guess I should, because this uh, Harvard thing wouldn't have been possible because, of course, Ida and Ethos and Nippon teams, but also Geeta ma'am,
Right.
Bijoy Ramchandra sir,
Right.
and all the jury members, Mahesh sir. They, even after nationals, so this was my first competition, and to be honest,
Oh, okay.
and I'm afraid of, you know, performing on stage. I have a lot of stage fear. So even after this nationals, they really kind of encouraged me. They told me like where should my project go. So we discussed, we took the project ahead. So I don't think it's not just about me winning this award,
Right.
but it's because of all these people too,
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So of course this Howard thing happened, but without all of them,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been possible. So yeah, it's all of us together for this,
Yeah.
not just me.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you, yeah, yeah.
I haven't met the other people personally or known them, but I do know Geeta ma'am. She's a fantastic woman.
Yes,
She's a very lovely person. And
yes, yes, yes.
it's an
She
absolute
has
joy to be
been,
around her. Yeah,
yes, no doubt.
yeah, yeah. Um, the reason why I was asking this question is I know this is a very short course, but did you see any major difference between how architecture is being learned and taught in Western or American university in comparison to schools in India? Could you grasp any of?
Yes, yes. Uh, yes, there are different methods which, of course, they put in. And one major thing which I found out was the examples or the principles which we were taught was not from the lens of architect, but more from the lens of an artist or a poet or a common man, you know. And here we are, referred to more examples from architects, from buildings,
Right,
majorly.
right, yeah,
So that, and I guess that helped a lot about, kind of opening this window for yourself.
hmm, yeah, interesting, yeah,
Yes, and of course, I got to know different works of Western architect, not just Western, but architects around the world. John Hedges' work, which I got to know after going into Harvard, which I really got inspired with. But yeah, and even learning, working and learning in Studio Mumbai. So there's like, let me put it this way: there's nothing right or wrong in what you're taught, right? It's always how you look and how you
yeah,
take in.
yeah,
So even learning in PVP or being in Harvard, both have equal weightage, because I have learned a lot in PVP as well,
yeah,
and here too.
yeah, definitely. Um,
But yes, it's more of like opening a window for yourself.
yeah, yeah. Um, Let me ask you this. Right now you're a practicing architect at Studio Mumbai. And you also like there are people who come to the space where they have to decide between doing a master's or continuing working in an office. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would get back to my meeting with Anand, sir, I too was confused about doing masters, but I guess after cycling, I didn't feel this need of doing masters, especially after my Sikkim experience.
Right.
But and yeah, when I met Anand, it was even I spoke to him about should I do masters or how do you take this decision?
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, and when he gave his experience about even he hasn't done masters, but for every project he goes back to something and learns about it. For example, you must have heard him
yeah,
in his lectures about designing a school for blind. So that he gave this example. He went to the school, worked there with them, and then got that knowledge, and then started this process of designing
yeah,
parallelly,
yeah,
if I'm not wrong. So that again, that this experience, what he said was that I linked to my cycling experiences because these small experiences have taught many things. So, do you really need to be in that specific academic schedule and then learn something, or you know, or rather put yourself into some experiences and then learn from it?
yeah, yeah,
So it depends.
yeah,
I'm not saying like you
yeah,
shouldn't do masters or something,
yeah,
but it depends on person to person.
yeah.
It's so for me, I don't think I'll do masters.
Mhm.
It's more of practical experience and also traveling around.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So what's you had a very colorful and vibrant story so far of your life. So what's next? What's next? I'm curious.
not sure. It's
You're
uh,
not the person who plans things and thinks about the future,
yeah,
are you? Yeah,
it's, yeah. I I prefer going step by step.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not sure what will come next year or what will happen, but just take a step at a time, I guess.
yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tanay. This has been an absolute
Yeah.
joy, and I absolutely enjoyed, and it was very really interesting to know about your story behind your your all your travels and your experiences.
Not for conclusion,
Yeah,
but somewhere in between, I wanted to say this. Just let me pull it out.
yeah,
I remembered this when you told me about this, value of being an architect and about traveling. The first question, I guess, if
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
wrong. I
yeah,
remembered this after this award, after the presentation. There's this architect called Satish Joshi. He's from Pune. He wrote me a few lines, and they were really beautiful. I'll just tell you. I'll just
yeah.
quote that. So he
Please.
said, "It's one realization. It's like as an architect, I still can design a beautiful bridge and make money, but only as a human I can bridge the gap."
Yeah,
He just sent me this on the WhatsApp, but it's I don't know. I found it very special and very true in that sense. It's more about being you, being about uh, good human than being an architect. It just yeah, I wanted to say this in between somewhere, not a
yeah.
concluding, but
Yeah, I
I
think,
just
yeah, on that
remembered
note, it's a wonderful statement that you gave. And
exactly. It's beautiful.
yeah, again, once again, thank you so much.
Thank
And I hope we can catch up on another episode sometime soon.
sure,
Yeah, thank you
sure.
so much, Thane. And